Kamala Harris has officially secured enough support from Democratic delegates in the US to win the party's presidential nomination. She'll be formally nominated at the Democratic National Convention later this month.
Since stepping into the presidential race, Kamala Harris has generated huge momentum. Galvanising voters, she's also raised more than $300 million for her campaign. She paints a picture of stark differences between herself and Donald Trump.
Today, we face a choice between two very different visions for our nation. One focused on the future, and the other focused on the past. And we are fighting for the future.
Just a few weeks ago, her Democratic Party was in disarray, with Joe Biden refusing to step down in his bid for re-election. Despite the transformation, there's still doubt about whether Harris can beat Trump. Her time as Vice President has been criticised. Some claim she was ineffective and failed to make the most of the role. Supporters argued she was sidelined and held to a higher standard because she was a woman and black.
You're going to be doing a lot of talking for the next while.
A former state prosecutor, Harris is a leading voice on abortion rights, a crucial issue on the domestic agenda, along with finding solutions for the migration crisis at the southern border. Internationally, Harris will need to manage growing criticism of the conflict in Gaza and America's continued support for Israel in the fighting, as well as its backing of Ukraine's defence against Russia's invasion. Describing herself as the underdog in the election, Harris now faces an uphill battle in the sprint to November's vote.
Let's get more from our Washington correspondent, Janelle Dumalaon. Welcome, Janelle. Lots of people will be wondering, well, didn't Kamala Harris already have the vote she needed?
Yes, Phil. So in those days after Joe Biden dropped out from the race and endorsed Kamala Harris, you did see a lot of news about how the delegates from different states were switching their support from Biden to Harris. And eventually that reached critical mass. That is probably what you are referring to. But theoretically, since then, another candidate could have entered the race, could have put their hat in the ring to become the Democratic presidential candidate. Now, the reason this roll call happened on August 1 was in order to comply with an August 7 deadline that the state of Ohio had, that they need to have met this August 7 deadline in order to be put on the Ohio ballot. So those are basically the things that have happened. Another candidate could have entered the race. The roll call would have been an opportunity for that candidate to also get votes from delegates. Because it didn't, and Kamala Harris now has the votes that she needs, it's become it has made what was sort of official become even more official. And Kamala Harris will then be set to accept the nomination at the DNC later this month.
And how's she been reacting to the news?
Well, she has been reacting to the news, saying that she was proud to be the presumptive nominee. And we heard that line from her again that she has been repeating in her stump speeches: when we fight, we win. But the fact of the matter is that there is still quite a bit of a road to go before the election. She did say that she was the underdog in this fight. This still remains a tight race. It will still come down to several thousand votes in just a few states. Donald Trump, of course, determined to paint her as a leftist radical candidate. She carries the burden of being from an incumbent administration, but also having to define herself away from Biden. So really, the only thing that has been settled today in terms of how this race is going to go is that there will be a Harris-Trump match in November.
So the Democratic National Convention takes place in 2 weeks. Democrats do seem to be more energised. Financial donations are coming in and celebrities showing an interest in attending.
Yeah, so there's actually been a lot of speculation as to which celebrities might appear or perform at the DNC. Perhaps at the center of that speculation is Beyonce, who actually hasn't officially endorsed Harris, but allowed the Harris campaign to use her song Freedom. Now, just a few days ago, I was at Harris's first major rally in Atlanta with that performance with Megan Thee Stallion. And I can tell you, the vibe there was completely different just in terms of the music, the atmosphere, the diversity of the crowd. But of course, rallies are giant echo chambers, and they really don't tell you much in terms of how the rest of the country feels about Kamala Harris. And this is going to be her real test, right? Like whether she can take that enthusiasm and carry it with her until the election, whether she can sustain that momentum and prove that we're not talking about a honeymoon period here or any of the other metaphors. So next week, she's actually going to be embarking on a campaign blitz among swing states, including Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. She'll also be in Arizona, among others. And every one of those stops is an opportunity for her to prove that she can sustain that momentum and carry it over until the election.
OK, thanks for that, Janelle. DW's Washington correspondent, Janelle Dumalaon.
To the US next, where for the past several generations, Black Americans have overwhelmingly supported the Democratic Party. But in the 2020 election, some polls showed a shift towards the Republican candidate Donald Trump, especially among Black men. With Vice President Kamala Harris expected to win the Democratic nomination, she sent a clear message to Black voters at her first campaign events. She wants their votes.
This is the mood Democrats are hoping for. During Kamala Harris' first big rally, people here in Atlanta, Georgia, celebrated the shift away from Joe Biden.
I am so excited to get Kamala into the White House.
She's not crazy, and I think her policies are really great, and I think she represents us as a country.
Something new for the country, and you know, it's time. We need change.
As a Black American, our family, our forefathers fought really hard for this opportunity, and I will not lay down on it, and I'm going to activate my right to vote.
Can she bring back the crucial Black voters to the Democrats? Away from the bubble of the hardcore supporters, the situation is more complex. Celeste Sunshine Smith is a 30-year-old entrepreneur and runs her own hairstyling business out of a shared salon.
You know, a lot of people that lean towards Trump, they think about the dollar aspect. They're concerned with how the money in their pocket going to get in their pocket, right? So she needs to explain that to them. How are you going to keep the money in here? Because we put money out all the time. We give money to this country, that country, but how are you going to keep the money here? And that's the biggest thing that's going to help get the Trump supporters on her side.
So, whom will she vote for?
I still wouldn't know. I still don't know. I would say Kamala would definitely have to show me where the growth is as far as the American income is going to be, for sure. Without honesty, I would have voted for Trump if Biden didn't step out of the race.
And what about the Black male community, a group where polling showed Trump gaining strength? Every week, a large group of Black men and boys come together in Atlanta to discuss issues. This time, Kamala Harris is at the center of the discussion.
Until the vice president entered the race, I think a lot of Black men and young men in particular were really not that interested. They just thought it would just be more of the same. One of the very important issues for me personally as a lawyer and as a professor is the issue of reparations. I think that conversation has to happen. I think we also have to look at ways of strengthening our HBCUs, our historically Black colleges and universities, with funding. We also are concerned about policing in America.
For me, it's a black, the first African-American female that could potentially be president of this country. I have a phenomenal mother, grandmother, raised in the house with a mom and dad, and a lot of times the female runs the home. So why not can a female run this country?